We have House File 1066 before the division. Would somebody like to make that motion?
So moved, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Representative Gomez. Representative Gomez moves House File 1066 before the division. And I believe Representative Dabney also has an author's amendment labeled A2. Can I get a motion to move that amendment?
I'll move that, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Representative Fisher. I probably should have done the other one first. So how we'll do this, first we're going to move House File 1066 before the division. Any questions on that? So the bill's before us now. Representative Fisher moved House File the Amendment A2 before the division to get the bill in the shape the author wants. I think since we have some testifiers around this, I think we're just going to take a vote on this amendment. And it'll be a voice vote, so it's in the shape the author would like. So people unmute. Any discussion on the amendment? Give it a second.
Madam Chair.
Yes, Representative Dabney.
Good afternoon. Would you like me to just briefly describe the amendment for members?
Why don't we go ahead and do that? Go ahead, Representative Dabney.
Just briefly, the amendment adds counties to the bill as eligible jurisdictions, clarifies that the bill applies only to lodging businesses within the larger tourism and hospitality industry, and ensures that there's coordination of tourism improvement districts in communities across the state. And it was developed with interaction from the hospitality industry.
All right, thank you, Representative Dabney. Members, any questions on the amendment? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? The motion prevails and the amendment is adopted. We have the bill before us. So Representative Dabney, go ahead and start off describing your bill.
Well, good afternoon again, Madam Chair. Thank you, Representative Gomez. Thank you, Representative Fisher, for having my back a bit there. I do have to start by saying I miss property taxes. As you know, Madam Chair, I chaired this division for 2 years, sat on it for 4, and it's a fun, kind of wonky place to spend your afternoons, and I miss it. Thank you, however, for the opportunity to present House File 1066 today. What we know about the many things that this pandemic has meant to Minnesota is that the tourism and hospitality industry was the first hit economically and may very well find itself to be the last to fully recover. Some national projections are that the hospitality and tourism industries may not fully recover until at least 2024, an extended challenge for those businesses and for those Minnesotans who rely on them for their employment. We also recognize that tourism drives economic activity across Minnesota, employs thousands of our constituents, and for many people, particularly from out of state, it's the tourism industry that's the face of Minnesota that they find when they come to shop, to fish, to snowmobile, to paddle, to do whatever they might do in our tourism industry. Recently, there was a survey conducted jointly by the Federal Reserve Bank of Minneapolis and Explore Minnesota and Hospitality Minnesota that found that nearly 2/3 of hospitality and tourism industry businesses reported significantly lower revenue this fall of 2020 compared to fall of 2019. Among hotels and other overnight accommodations, however, 87% of the Twin Cities metropolitan area reported significantly lower revenue, 87%. Numbers outside the metro area were also significantly lower, particularly in hotels, but the summer resort and campground accommodations helped cushion the impact in that region, but not blunt it entirely by any stretch of the imagination. For workers in the industry, Minnesota Deed reported in December that in December 2020 that the leisure and hospitality industry saw a 43% unemployment drop from 2019, a 43% drop for those employed in the industry. And the accommodation sector, again, highlighted in this bill saw a 53% drop in employment rates. I'm pleased that House File 1066, which authorizes a local government to establish a tourism improvement district through a local ordinance process in cooperation with the local tourism industry, should really be called a tourism recovery and improvement district. It's a new concept to Minnesota, but it's not new across the country. There are 18 states that have already authorized tourism improvement districts, some going back as long as 30 years, Madam Chair. It's a statewide bill, particularly with the addition of the A2 amendment that the committee just acted on, modeled after existing law authorizing the establishment of special service districts. The difference is a tourism improvement district is not based upon a property tax assessment, but is a service charge on a lodging night. It's a public-private partnership to provide supplemental funding for specific tourism activities as outlined again in the bill language. No city or county would be required to establish such a tourism improvement district. It's an optional tool for consideration when putting together an economic recovery plan. Members, you should have received 2 letters of support, one from the Minnesota Association of Convention and Visitors Bureaus, and one specifically from the Arrowhead Tourism Association. You also have a handout with more information about the bill. I forwarded that handout to members in their emails early this afternoon. At this point, Madam Chair, if you would, I'd like to hand it over to testifiers, starting with Sarah Sick.
Ms. Sick.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair and members. My name is Sarah Pasick with Pasick Capital Solutions, and I'm working with Meet Minneapolis on House File 1066, the bill that will allow the establishment of a tourism improvement district. I want to thank Representative Dabney for his work on the bill. He provided an excellent presentation and walked through the legislation, so I don't have too many comments. But I just want to add that one thing we can all agree on is that the hospitality and tourism industry has suffered significant hits during the COVID-19 pandemic. We've learned that tourism drives economic activity across Minnesota, and when that's missing, communities suffer. Tourism employs thousands of your constituents, and it's often the face of Minnesota. And like Representative Dabney said, well, these tourism improvement districts are a new concept in the state of Minnesota. They have not been a new idea in the rest of the country. And we've been looking at these as a way to recover the tourism improvement district, something that has been successful. So just bringing that model here to Minnesota. Massachusetts, in fact, just passed this legislation in January as part of their recovery package. So I just want to emphasize that this is an optional tool for communities to use. And now I'll turn over testimony to Mr. Melvin Tennant and Ms. Anna Tansky, who will provide more details on the bill and how tourism improvement districts will benefit many communities across the state. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Pasick. Mr. Tennant.
Thank you, Madam Chair, committee members. Good afternoon. My name is Melvin Tennant, President and CEO of Meet Minneapolis, our Convention and Visitors Association. And I'd like to thank you for your time today to hear about this enabling legislation in Minnesota for the Tourism Recovery and Improvement District. You've heard that word recovery several times already this afternoon. Tourism Recovery and Improvement Districts, as we've heard, have been around for about 30 years in 18 states and nearly 200 cities at this point. And you can view those on the handout that you should have with you. But they haven't come to our state yet. We do have them next door in South Dakota, where 15 cities, both large and small, have had these districts in place since 2008. And we know that Wisconsin, Iowa, Illinois are states that are considering this as well. A TRID, if I can use that abbreviation, is designed to be an additive source of funding for a city or county to consider with their hotels, with the hotel community, to attract more visitors, more business travelers, meetings, conventions, and events for the ultimate goal of economic benefit for that community. When we began looking at this for Minneapolis, and that was almost 4 years ago, it was then an eye to drive more business to our hotels, our restaurants, theaters, attractions, sporting venues, and retailers. However, with the onset of COVID-19, many communities are using the TRID as a tool for their recovery efforts. Again, recovery is very important to our industry. The impact to the hospitality industry has been significant due to COVID-19. Hotel occupancy in the state of Minnesota has lagged, the metro area has lagged the national average, and studies show that it'll be 4 to 5 years before hotel community returns to pre-COVID levels. In Minneapolis, we had as many as 20,000 hospitality employees without work last year at the peak of the pandemic. And we know that the TRID concept was initially brought forth by hotels in our city by some of our hotel general managers who had actually worked in other communities where successful TRIDs had been implemented. And they now believe that if enacted, this is a way to bring back levels of business and get workers back to work more quickly in communities across our state. So what are these districts and what do they do? Well, this enabling legislation is based on special service district legislation already authorized in Minnesota. It would allow hotels in a community to place a service charge on a guest room, and that service charge may either be a percentage of the room rate or it might be a dollar figure, $1, $2, or $3 per room night. This would be an additive charge to the guest at checkout. And you've probably paid such a fee in places where you've visited previously. The service would be collected by the district, and it must benefit those who collect the charge. In this case, hotels within the community that set up that district. Because the district collects a service charge and this is not based on property taxes like special service districts, we believe that this legislation is required for communities to develop these districts. If passed by the state legislature, hotels in Minnesota can advance the concept at the local level. They can then vote on acceptance and develop the parameters and uses of the funds. And lastly, approach their local government about the development of the district within their community and through their local ordinance process. So it's very customized to the local community. The uses of the funds are outlined in the legislation, but in general, the hotels will partner with the local Convention and Visitors Bureau to develop new sales and marketing plans or events to drive additional business to the community. An annual business plan developed by the Tourism Improvement Association and executed by the CVB or selected agency for use of the funds and an annual report are all required by the local government when the ordinance is developed. So there are some checks and balances already built into the legislation. The funds collected must be used for new or expanded marketing and sales activities and do not replace those dollars that are already provided to the CVBs through the local communities in which they are currently serving. So again, it's meant to be supplemental, not supplanting. The state of Massachusetts, as we've heard, has already passed an economic stimulus bill back in January with TRID enabling legislation. And we believe this is a way for our state to assist the hospitality industry, and in particular, our hard-hit hotel industry without a financial ask of government or in a line item of the budget. It's a means to get our fellow Minnesotans back to work faster and even to attract more visitors, meetings, events in Minnesota communities that will generate revenue for local businesses and state and local taxes. Lastly, as I wrap up, I would like to add that this legislation has the support of the Greater Minneapolis Hotel Association, Minnesota Association of Convention and Visitors Bureaus, the Minnesota Arrowhead Association, and you should have a copy of their supporting letters. In addition, several other local convention and visitors bureaus are in the process of seeking support from their boards of directors. So again, thank you, Madam Chair and committee members, for your time and consideration on this legislation. And I want to thank Abney for his support of this process. And my colleagues and I would be happy to answer any questions that arise.
Thank you, Mr. Tennant. Ms. Tansky, you're next, but could you keep your comments a little bit more brief? I want to make sure we have some time for questions. So go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I will be very brief. In Duluth, we have been exploring the concept
Oh, Ms.
of...
Tansky, my fault. Could you please state your name for the record and proceed?
Yes, sorry. Anna Tansky. I am the president and CEO of Visit Duluth and represent the hospitality tourism section here. In Duluth, we've been exploring this concept of a tourism recovery and improvement district for more than 3 years. long before we knew of COVID or the need for recovery. And while this has been an ongoing discussion, the lodging partners have not made any commitment or decision to proceed further. However, as the pandemic continues and the road to recovery stretches into years rather than months, access to this resource is being considered. These districts are successful across the country, as we've heard, and I want to emphasize that especially relevant to Greater Minnesota, they are successful in small and mid-sized destinations that have limited budgets due to having fewer lodging properties that are collecting the taxes that fund their sales and marketing efforts. This supplemental funding must be used for new initiatives, and it infuses new visitors, bringing new dollars into these communities. This enabling legislation is the first step to creating a pathway to recovery for hard-hit communities across Minnesota, should they decide it's a good fit for their destination. A majority vote of the hotel owners is required to begin the process that requires several levels and steps, from a local ordinance being formed, customized for that community, and approved by the local governing body, agreements then put in place. These revenues have an immediate impact and provide ongoing opportunities for continued investment and growth managed by the lodging industry in partnership with the Convention Bureau. In conclusion, private dollars being utilized for public benefit, restoring health within the hospitality sector and the overall economy, and moving forward into a thriving visitor economy across Minnesota. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Tansky. Representative Hertaus, questions?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Mr. Tennant and Ms. Tansky, for your testimony about this important effort to jumpstart our economy in this sector of employment and jobs. In reading the bill, I noticed that there was kind of a permissive language with regard to what amount of revenue is collected. It referred to a 3% gross tax on entire receipts, which somewhat resembles a provider tax that we've often talked about in the legislature. It also mentions a fee and other reasonable methods of financing, which I guess is open for discussion. My concern is we already heard that a majority of business owners, 60%, would have the ability to drag the other 40% along with this requirement. Is there any provision for certain entities of certain size or small operation to opt out of the requirement to have to pay these fees, or is there no opting out for anybody who is classified as a business in this enterprise?
Who would like to
Anybody who
answer
wants
that? Ms. Tansky.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chairman, and thank you, Representative Hertaus, for your question. So once this enabling legislation goes into effect, the individual community works within their hotel sector to determine the parameters of the district, including the size of the properties. So for Duluth, we've explored the possibility of lodging properties 30 rooms and greater would be sort of the minimum. And so smaller properties in our community, they would not be impacted. However, they could voluntarily contribute. If they saw the benefit, then they are able to voluntarily participate in this program. So it's up to the individual community to really determine what is suitable for their size properties. If you have only small properties, obviously, then that's going to be a different conversation in a smaller community.
Representative Hertaus, follow up.
Thank you. So based on that scenario, perhaps a bed and breakfast who has a couple of rooms may not find an economic advantage to have to pay these fees off their gross receipts or gross revenues, and they would have the ability to not participate. That's good to hear. Also, what about any sunset provision on a proposal like this? I mean, shouldn't you maybe be required to take a look-see after 5 years and see how it's going and whether or not you decide to suspend the operation if it's not working very well?
Mr. Tennant, I saw your hand go up. Go ahead.
Yes, Madam Chair and Representative, the bill does provide for a time limit, at which point in time the ordinance would have to be renewed. So there is an opportunity for lots of feedback. In fact, you might also, I'll call your attention to the fact that there is an annual provision for a marketing plan to be presented to the local municipality to make sure that there is always that oversight in place. So this is definitely not perpetual. There is a limit associated with it. It would have to be voted upon by those that are within that particular jurisdiction.
Thank you. And Madam Chair, one last
Representative
follow-up.
Hurtas, go ahead.
Thank you. So also with the amendment that was added, it kind of made it appear as though counties would be able to effectively be the operating entity for the marketing. And I could appreciate that with some of the rural counties that maybe that might be a more efficient way. I suppose in a certain way that this then creates competition between counties for competing tourist dollars in terms of wanting to get someone to stay in their county versus someone else. And I could see there being maybe a little bit of issues with that, as opposed to specific communities promoting and marketing a destination. And certainly all of us are aware in our travels that you get certain brochures or whatnot to come to a certain community for certain reasons, and this is no different. So I'm not sure how that county connection is. Even if the counties are authorized, are enabled, does it still revert to individual communities within the county? Is that what I'm hearing? Or is it that the county would actually be doing all the marketing and make the decisions who's going to participate and who is not?
Representative Dabney.
Madam Chair, Representative Hurtas, thank you for the question. I think it's about, generally it's going to go to the Convention and Visitors Bureau in the area, some of which in Greater Minnesota, as you pointed out, may be organized along county lines for the efficiency, as you say.
Representative Hurtas.
Thank you, Representative Dabney, and thank you, Madam Chair. I'll end my questioning, but as long as individual participants have the option to not participate or can opt out under certain circumstances, and there are some sunsets, I think this is a bill worthwhile going forward on.
Thank you, Representative Hurtas. Members, any further questions? Seeing none, Representative Dabney, final comments.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Ms. Pasick, Mr. Tennant, and Ms. Tansky for your testimony today. Members, this is an opportunity to provide local businesses and local communities tools to rebuild and recover from remarkable impact of the pandemic on our local economies. It's also an opportunity for Minnesota to put its best face forward through its tourism industry, and that pays off for all of us as residents of this great state. So I ask for your ongoing support as Chair Youakim puts together her division report. Thank you very much.